Good evening. Good evening, Redbird. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We've got a few more folks coming in. So as everybody's getting settled, I just wanted to welcome you all. I'm going to keep my eye on getting everybody in here. My name is Stephanie Duquesne, and I am your Senior Director of Alumni Engagement, Illinois State University. And you're here tonight to listen in on one of our Redbird Table Talks. Our Redbird Table Talks were developed from our Alumni Association Board Committee, our Redbird Engagement and Development Committee, to talk about important topics that we're interested in. And this one was a topic that just kept coming up. It's a hot topic in the news, in the media right now, the climate of higher education. And we really do have a great panel. So I think we're all going to learn something tonight. And just a little bit of housekeeping before I start introducing the folks that you'll hear from tonight. You should be able to chat in your chat if you've got a comment. You won't be able to take yourself off to speak, but use that chat feature and also that Q&A feature. We're gonna, myself and our moderator are gonna keep an eye on that Q&A, and hopefully there's about 10 minutes at the end that we can address any of those questions that have gone unanswered. So don't hesitate to put some questions in that Q&A and make this a dynamic conversation. But first, yes, let us meet your moderator, Janina Woodson Armstrong. Welcome, Janina. She is a 1992 alumnus of Illinois State University. Janina is a certified executive leadership and career coach with over 25 years of experience in human resources and talent management. She is the CEO and executive coach of Metamorphosis Coaching LLC and also works with Building Champions Inc. and Chief as a coach and facilitator. Her previous corporate experiences include leadership roles at the Jacob Group, Christus Health, Wells Fargo, and Target Marshall Field's company. Welcome, Janina.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie.
If you are ready, I am going to just hand this off to you and let you take it from here.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Stephanie. You can hear me, correct? Sounds like you can. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We are so pleased to have with us today 4 outstanding, esteemed panelists whose experiences span the higher education leadership, finance, alumni engagement, and academic administration. Each of these individuals really bring a distinct perspective to today's conversation, and I'm really excited for you to hear from each of them. So the first person I'm going to introduce, we are joined by Dr. A.J. Samant, who is the Dean of Illinois State University College of Business, my alma mater, College of Business, class of 1992. Whoop, whoop. Dr. A.J., welcome. And let me just say that since becoming Dean in 2016, he has brought extensive expertise in international finance, in financial markets, accreditation, and higher education leadership. And he is widely recognized for his contributions at both the institutional and the national level. Thank you for joining us, Dr. AJ. Next, we are pleased to have with us Dr. Matt Seaton. And Matt is the Chief Financial Officer at Illinois State Board of Education. Dr. Seaton has served in leadership roles across K through 12 and higher education, including as the superintendent and community college vice president. And he brings a strong perspective on educational finance, leadership development, and policy. Welcome, Matt. Our third panelist is Lindsay Valdine, who is the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Engagement and Executive Director of Northwestern Alumni Association. A 2-time Illinois State graduate, Lindsay has built an impressive career in higher education and alumni relations, leading strategic engagement efforts while making a lasting impact through her service, advocacy, and leadership. And we are so pleased to have you, Lindsay. And finally, we are honored to have Dr. Jay Ackridge, who is the trustee chair in teaching and learning excellence. He is also the professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics at Purdue University. Dr. Ackridge previously served on Purdue's provost and executive vice president, is widely respected for his leadership, teaching, and his insight into the future of higher education. So we're so pleased to have you, Dr. J. And Dr. Saman, would you come back on camera, please, so we can see your lovely face? All right, there we go, our esteemed panelist. And so we're just going to jump right into the first question, and just I'm gonna pose this first question to Dr. J. And what I want to ask you is to kick us off with understanding a little bit about navigating the changing climate of higher education right now. What do you see as the greatest challenge your institution in particular faces? And then what are some of the lessons that have emerged from that experience?
Yeah, so the challenge that jumped into my mind for this question was really dealing with COVID, frankly, which I think for all of us in higher ed was an extraordinary time. But, and none of us ever want to revisit that. But I think it lifted up for us issues around student mental health. It lifted up for us issues around student engagement and how critical it was to get students engaged early to be connected to the place. I think it helped us focus more on experiential learning and to those things that could be offloaded to other forms of distance delivery, et cetera, and focus on using classroom time effectively and just general communication. So, I don't know that we've had a crisis of any more larger magnitude here, but at the same time, I think we took away some things that made our program better as a result, and more focused even on student success.
Yeah. What's maybe one of the things that have made the program or made things better as a result?
Yeah. So one thing that made things better, sure. So I think in general, doubling down on helping that first semester student find their place and get connected as quickly as they possibly can. It's a new experience for them coming off, from wherever they're coming from. We'll get into this later, I'm sure, but retention and completion is so important. We admit these students with every intention of helping them see their path all the way through. But that first semester, and I think during COVID, it was incredibly difficult for these students to find that set of connections, Janina. And so in the end, I think it helped us, come up with better ways to help them find their path more quickly, and in the context, much more likely to see their degree all the way through to completion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I think about back in the day when we first all started, right, as first year students, but then to add that component of the pandemic, it's just had to be extremely difficult.
It
So,
was.
yeah, thank you for that. Let's hear from Lindsay. What about you, Lindsay? What has been, some of the changing climate in where you are? What's been the major challenge, and what lessons have you learned from there?
Well, thank you for coming to me. I'm actually thinking about more of like higher ed in general, because higher education as an institution at large is under attack. We know that there's this lack of trust in higher education, and there's more accountability for outcomes. There's more accountability for the data. Where are students being placed after graduation? So we see that from an alumni engagement standpoint, is that people are getting involved in different ways. It's more episodic and more digital. It's not as showing up in person to the activities. And so if I think about my experience here at Northwestern, is really thinking about the reputation of the institution and all of the factors, the climate at the federal level that's impacting how we're operating, is gets down to everyone's level, no matter where you're at in the organizational structure. And so it's really about demonstrating our relevance and access to services, to resources. And since I'm in a fundraising area, it's like, what are you doing with the funds beyond what's the impact? People really want to know what that means. People expect more tailored experiences and not this mass, like one size fits all kind of model that a lot of places have utilized for so long. So what is that individual experience? And people want to be engaged for engagement's sake and not just for the sake of giving, although that philanthropy is really important. And there's so much competition for philanthropy right now, right? And philanthropy cannot fill the bucket of resources that are being taken away in other spaces. So there's a lot of challenges across the institution and specifically in the space of advancement that I serve in.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you said a mouthful there, and I know we have to change with the times, right? I'm thinking about with just engagement, and specifically, I do remember back in the day, and in the '90s when I was at Illinois State, and I just recall we didn't have a choice but to meet in person, like for example, the sorority that I'm a member of, and now my youngest is a part of a fraternity, and they actually they don't understand why they have to meet in person. They feel like they have to, why can't they meet via their text? They communicate on their text all the time. So I'm thinking, well, how does that get you involved? And how does that engagement happen if you're not doing the in person? So that's what I'm thinking about as you're talking about some of the changes that, could also be very generational as well. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Higher education has been receiving increasingly negative attention in the media, particularly around concerns about cost, the value of a degree, and whether the investment of time is even worth it. Given the recent changes and challenges affecting the field, how should institutions best respond to and navigate this negative public narrative? I'm going to ask this, Dr. AJ, if you can respond to this question.
Sure. Yes. First of all, I want to say that I think both Jay and Lindsay have summed up very well the situation that we are in. Yes, I'd like to pick up on something that Lindsay said. We face, unfortunately, a trust deficit in higher education. It has many different dimensions. There are questions about affordability. There are questions about ideological bias. There is perceived lack of relevance to the modern society and the modern economy. And these are all issues that kind of, are the big elephants in the room. In addition, as if that was not enough, there is rising legislative intervention in curricula, in DEI, in tenure protections, and both at federal and at state levels. The student expectations are changing too, in that there is more and more focus on what I call the ROI, return on investment mindset, where people count the dollars that they invest in their education and then calculate the return that they would receive. I mean, education has been monetized to the extent it has never been before. These are all issues that we have to address in higher education. Some of them are real issues and some of them are perceptions. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to separate one from the other. particularly in a polarized country.
Mm-hmm.
So, the leaders in higher education have a challenging task ahead of them. And there is no easy answer to these questions because
Yeah.
there is some truth on each side. So, in kind of a quick response to your question, Janina, is that we face significant challenges. There is no single answer to these questions, and we would really have to examine them piece by piece to determine the best path forward on these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Do you see this being a short-term moment for higher ed or as part of a longer-term trend? What are your thoughts?
I wish it were a short-term trend.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
You don't
I
think
think,
so?
no, I think it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And these are issues that we have to address if we are to bring back public trust in higher education and to convince both families and students that their investment in time and money is worth it. And again, there are many different dimensions to this.
Mm-hmm.
Affordability is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
The how do we address those issues? The As if affordability by itself was not enough, we are
Mm-hmm.
running into demographic issues, the enrollment cliff, with a declining population of high school students and a declining percentage of those who choose to go to college. How do we continue to give them a level of service that they expect? And in fact, the expectations are rising in that it's not just academic. We now have to address student mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
affordability issues, things which were not really in our purview a few years ago. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to address them now.
Yeah. Matt, I want to hear from you. I see you shaking your head and you're bursting to say something. So comment
Yeah,
please
so
on either question.
first of all, thanks for the invitation to be here tonight. I'm privileged and honored to be asked to even be included in such a distinguished panel. But back to the first question, and just everything everybody said is right on the money. We we had we faced a immediate need for a systemic shift in every single operational area of a university, college, K-12, wherever, my primary experience is K-12 with a smattering of higher ed. But right, everything from facility usage to staff time use, everything was challenged. And we weren't given time to adapt. And so I think systemically, across every level of every university and every system has been challenged to be a lot more proactive now and forward thinking in how we need to address the coming student populations that we are going to be serving in the future. Um, yeah, and on this note, particularly in Illinois, that's in my wheelhouse, working for the state of Illinois right now. There's been just a systemic disinvestment financially in higher ed in the state of Illinois, dating back to previous governors, and to the point of, depending on which study you read, 40% or funding for higher education in the state of Illinois is 40% less now, adjusted for inflation, than it
Mm.
was in the year 2000,
Wow.
right? So what has that snowball has resulted in a debt adverse student body
Mhm.
mentality who have grown up listening to podcasts or TikTok videos, even
Yes.
of Dave Ramsey saying don't borrow money under any circumstance, right? Couple that with a state who I love. I am a state of Illinois fan, but who has a bad history of funding higher education, driving tuition rates and costs, the burden of education being put onto the student more so than maybe other areas of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Coupled with, to AJ's point about the enrollment cliff, right? The Midwest has been just decimated by the enrollment cliff more so than other areas of the country, changing demographics, right? I've got kids. I've got 3 kids in college right now. They want to go somewhere where it's sunny and warm, right? And that's not Illinois, at least 50% of the year. And so, how do we be proactive, adapt on a dime, and still be financially responsible both to our students and to our institutions all at the same time? And those are all questions that if you've got the answer, right, you're destined for a fame and fortune, because we're all still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, go back to this question of the rising costs for higher education affecting decisions for future students to attend. Are there any ideas that any of you have that will help offset those costs and give more value options for potential students?
Sure, Janina. Let me make a couple of comments, and I come back to some things both Matt and AJ and Lindsay said. I mean,
Okay.
one is to help them maximize the value of their degree, and I think for us in higher ed, I think everybody can simply do a better job in helping students prepare for that step. And I'm guessing Illinois State is like Purdue. We've got a group of students that it's almost stay out of their way because they know how to navigate the place and take full advantage. But there's so many that don't. We sometimes talk about them being general contractors of their education. Some of them are really good at that and some aren't. And Illinois State, like us, we got all these opportunities for students to be prepared, and yet they don't fully take advantage of them or know how to articulate that preparation to an employer. So for me, part of the cost question is to help them, one, be absolutely as prepared as they can so they can get that career that they came to campus to again pursue. And then one more point, and then I'll stop on this one. But the other is to help them complete, because the student that really struggles is the one that takes down some debt, starts but doesn't finish. And we know that in four-year publics, about 7 in 10 will finish in 6 years someplace, but the other 30% don't. And that student has now probably incurred cost, didn't have a job, and has debt and doesn't have a credential. And I think, a couple of ways, and there's other things we can do on cost, but helping them maximize the value and doing all we can. They got to hold up their end of this bargain too, to complete are a couple of things I think to help realize the value of the educational opportunities we create.
So here's something that I was thinking about when we were posing this question. We had talked about this, is when you look at a degree that you get from the College of Business versus, and a person who's going into, say, a marketing role with the Fortune 500 versus the cost of a degree for an educator who's going to become a teacher, and the salary difference that those two individuals will make versus the cost of the education. Any thoughts about, and anyone can answer, but I'd be curious with Dr. AJ being the College of Business, how do we look at this from, the value options, for those students that have different degrees?
Now, that's a good question, Janina. And, I'll just use Illinois State as an example. Many of our students are first-gen students. Many of them have no family history of college education. Many of them have no guidance. And as educators, it is our responsibility to give them this guidance. Now, there is a philosophical difference which I think I should speak to, in that there are two philosophies that I see, both at my university and elsewhere. One philosophy is that the job of a college professor is to give students the best possible education. And what they do with their education is their business. That is one point of view. The other philosophy, or the other point of view, is that we have, a responsibility not only to give them a great education, but to set them on a career path. So, there are these two philosophies. And again, for students who are struggling financially, my recommendation, and I may be biased because I am the dean of a college of business, but my recommendation is to keep your financial situation in mind when you choose whether you want a career or a major that is career focused or not, because this decision has substantial financial consequences that young people don't fully comprehend. So this, again, as I said, there is no right and wrong answer. There are two different philosophies here. But in my conversations with young people and with with their families, I let them know my thoughts on this. That they must keep in mind the cost of their education and what lies ahead for them after they graduate, when they make a choice of what they plan to study in college.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And I have to say this. So I originally started off as a psychology major and realized that I would have to go for a master's degree if I wanted to make any kind of money or do anything, right? So I switched to the College of Business when the human resources, uh, not specialty, but what am I saying? Minor, or oh gosh, you know what I mean? The concentration. That's what I'm saying. The concentration, which was in 1989. So that gave me the business along with the human relations side. And so that was my decision, because I knew that I, being a first generation college student, couldn't afford to go for a master's. I was barely able to pay for my undergrad, but able to still have a passion for people underneath there. So I just agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. Anyone else would like to comment on the rising cost and how ideas to help offset those costs for students?
Lindsay, you want to go? I saw you come off.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I was going to mention two different ways of thinking. One, so I worked in admissions at Illinois State before working in alumni engagement. So this was a conversation I had every day for 7.5 years. And one of the things that we have to consider and encourage is that we have a great community college system that is a pathway that sometimes is not communicated as well, right? It's like 4-year, great. And I'm an advocate for that. I'm also a first generation college student, and I was not encouraged to go to a 4-year institution. Actually, I was not encouraged to go to college in the first place, but it was someone told me, like, you should seek this out. So it's having the conversations. The advisors in university college, this is where I think the advisors play an important role, is to say, why are you interested in this major? What are your intended outcomes? And help with that, because ultimately we are preparing people for outcomes, for experiences beyond their 4 years. The degree is one component.
Gotcha.
And we're addressing at the institution, no matter what institution you're at, we're addressing the whole person. Everyone has said this in different ways. Like, yes, you're going to the university, but you don't live in a dorm. You live in a residence halls because you are creating a community. Student affairs creates the experiential component that balances out the academics. So I think part of it is higher education does not do a good job of framing the conversation from the immediate outcome of you're getting this degree. Rather, we should really be talking about what's the value over a lifetime. And this is where, of course, my space of alumni engagement, like those are your best advocates. You can, all of us sitting around this table, I can tell you the benefits that I've gained because of my experience as an undergrad. Similar to you, I changed my major, and primarily I do not use my undergraduate major at this point in stage in life. And that's okay, but you want to know what Illinois State did? I have a toolkit. We are preparing people to have toolkits to be contributors to the greater society. And I think that's what's important about the value of a degree, things that you may not get in other spaces, because in higher ed and in colleges, it's more of a safer space. You can try things, you can fail down, you can fail up, and you have the support systems. When you move into a space where you are, more of on your own and not in this protected space, that doesn't allow that to happen as much. But as far as changing the cost and the way we do that, that is, if you figure that out, let me know.
Let you
I can
know.
be your sidekick. I'd be happy to help you execute that, because that's what everyone's trying to solve for, right? Like where I'm at now, it costs almost $100,000 a year. And you want to know why they're investing at Northwestern is because of the outcomes, the value over a lifetime, not the instance of being there for the 4 years, because the greater experience outweighs that. That's what people have shared with me from their alumni experience.
I love your comment about the community college piece, that I think a lot more of our students that are now going to school are considering that aspect more so than we did before. Because back in the day, and there's maybe still some elements of it across the country, if you went to a community college, you were less than. It's kind of what they were thinking. People would think, well, something's wrong with you, or you're not smart enough, or whatever. So, but that is a way to offset costs, is to attend a community college first before going into a 4-year. Matt, I want you to comment.
Yeah, quickly. So proud community college grad, right? And work there in administration. Definitely advocate in that space. And as far as the bachelor's degree, not in use today, I was a music major, and now I'm a CFO of a state agency.
Yes.
That's a whole other webinar for how we connect those dots.
Do you sing over lunch?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm the entertainment on my particular wing. But I just wanted to say, as far as value add and to the retention point that I know Jay's talked about, I think that particularly in institutions like Illinois State, I think we need to reimagine what our general education component looks like sometimes, right? First 2 years of university are heavy on general education requirements. You might feel disconnected from your areas of interest at some point that cause you to be on that bubble, in the retention space. And so how can we make our general education requirements relevant? How can we make them modern? How can we incorporate things like, to AJ's point, the financial literacy? Why is this important? Why do you need to take these courses? What is the digital literacy that we can build into there? Project-based learning, lots of concepts outside of just a straightforward Carnegie block style general education approach, right?
Jay, you're on mute.
So I got excited when Matt made that comment, because I think it's so true. I teach a class now in Ag Econ. We had this issue. Come into agricultural economics at Purdue, take a bunch of general ed courses. Why I'm in this major? I mean, what am I going to do with it? The course now that I teach, 1 hour class, we bring in 15 alums. in different phases. They've all got an ag econ degree. They've all gone to do something. And the whole point is to just help expose the students, Matt, to your point, what's possible with the degree so that they get some idea of, I'm not just sitting in English and math and biology. Oh, I see where this could go. So I just wanted to amplify your point because I think it's a really important one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a question in the chat. Is there any thought to how colleges can reach students and parents at the high school level to help reinstate the value of college? How can colleges, reach students and parents at the high school level?
Former high school principal, former high school superintendent. So this, is an area that we work in diligently, even now in my current role. I think that in a very targeted way, we've all been in the situations where we have the college day and all of the colleges come into the cafeteria and they set up booths, right? And the best tables or the most visited tables are the ones with the best trinkets, or they're giving away the best swag, so to speak. But where are we connecting with the students on that individual level to say, do you want to go to a large school? Do you want to go to a small school? Do you want the D1 SEC environment, right? Or do you want to know your professors personally? And I think, I chose EIU for undergrad, Eastern Illinois University, and I went there very purposefully because I had connected with my principal major professors before I even set foot on campus. And that's not always the case in some, different institutions. Now, I say that and like I said, I have kids in three different colleges. Two kids chose small private liberal arts colleges, and one kid is at Mizzou. And so it's, but it, each of their choices fits their personality very, very well. And I think where the disconnect is, back to the original question, the disconnect between that conversation in the high school with the student or with the parents is a collaborative conversation that the colleges and universities need to be more engaged with the high school staff who are ultimately having a very profound influence on the decisions of those high school students. My guidance counselors would say, Purdue might be a good fit for you, or Illinois State might be a good fit for you, based upon what we know about you over the last 4 years. And I think sometimes that communication piece, we go straight to the cafeteria for the college fair, right? But how are we connecting with those staff members at the high schools who are really having those influences on those thought processes of our students?
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. Very good point. I'm curious to hear more about, Lindsay, for you, for example, for you, do you feel as though from the standpoint of a Northwestern, right? Do you feel like there's enough of that connection to the high school staff, or is it more students, or is it, do you just go off of your reputation because you're Northwestern? Because you're Northwestern is Northwestern, right?
So reputation does precede itself in some instances, but what I would say that I know that undergraduate admissions does here is we have a space called the Center for Talent Development that is an access point that is not at the high school level. It's elementary, middle school. There's a lot of programs, and what I was going to make mention of as my colleague Matt was talking, is that there's so many community-based organizations that are investing in educating students about the college experience and not waiting till the junior and senior year. One of the things that is really important is, where is that education happening? And it really should be happening earlier on, so people understand what's happening, can educate the students, can educate the parents. And there's several community-based organizations, and I know that Illinois State does the same thing. They invest in supporting community-based organizations that help elevate higher ed in general, not just the institution. So there's a lot of town and gown activities that Northwestern participates in with CPS. We have a pipeline there. We have a pipeline with the community colleges. So yeah, you have name recognition. And I think, and not to take away from anywhere else, everyone has brand recognition.
Yeah.
In their own way.
In their own right. Yeah.
I mean, I was just going down 294 now. I was with my husband on Easter going out to the suburbs, and I said, there's an Illinois State sign. So brand recognition is important to this, right? And so you've seen this all the time, but community-based organizations, I would say, play a key role. And we do a lot of speaking opportunities, not just to those that are looking to matriculate. So they can be middle school. We do tours for all different levels too. So that gives people access to the educational landscape, to say, college is for me, even if it's not Northwestern. Maybe it is Purdue. Maybe it is Illinois State or Eastern Illinois. So
let's there's a comment in the chat that I want to address. The panelist, this individual is looking for more discussion around the threats to higher education coming from the federal government. Okay. Let's kind of go back to the first and second question that I asked you. The threats to DE&I, academic freedom, institutional oversight, federal grant funding, etc. And so if each of you would like to speak to, or one or two of you would like to speak more to the broader threat and how you are navigating this, either personally or your institution is addressing these bigger, broader threats.
Maybe let me make a few quick comments, Janine. I think, and AJ talked about this earlier, when an institution like higher ed, public trust erodes, then the public starts to to intervene in your business, because they're not confident in your own ability to manage. And I think we've seen that unfortunately unfold in a variety of ways. You touched on a lot of them, around funding, around governance, around academic freedom. And I think it's depending on your state. Obviously law is law, so you have to obviously address whatever is coming. But I think it comes back to, what do we need to do to reestablish trust, especially with our constituents that are closest to home? Because again, individuals in our states have a lot to say about our own institutions and what we can do and can't do. And if we double down on how we're best, again, educating the citizens of the state for productive careers, if we're doing research that's benefiting, again, the citizens of our state, if we're engaged with local communities and the broader state and making a difference and communicating that, then again, I think the lens that we get to look through is a bit different. So I think these interventions have certainly, they've been extensive, they've been very invasive. And I think, we got to start with where we can control, which is probably closer to home, and work with broader associations to influence things in DC. So, and that's a pretty generic answer, but I think, it's not so.
They say charity starts abroad. I mean, charity starts at home and spreads abroad.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. How would you answer that, Matt?
Yeah, I think, of course, funding is my wheelhouse, right? And so one of the things that we monitor very closely is things like indirect rates. And not all of this stuff is just budgetary or legislative mandates. Within the past week, we've seen the Trump administration drop a new budget proposal for FY27, which would be in Illinois, would be our FY28. Very similar to the skinny budget that they dropped, I think, about a year ago, February of 2025, where, we're cutting TRIO programs, we're cutting higher ed costs. But Of more concern to me would be things like the attempts to limit indirect cost rates for research institutions at 15%. Sometimes, in higher ed, our indirect cost rates can be 40, 50, 60%. And so when those get limited to 15%, that is a sizable chunk of that grant that cannot go to overall operational expenditures. And when you compile in a large R1 university, all of the research grants that one might get, that turns into an extremely sizable amount of money. And you don't see that legislated. You don't see that, people don't understand that publicly on how that works. But it has a dramatic effect on our institutions. And so we obviously need to continue to advocate in that space. We need to continue to let our legislators know the dramatic impact. Depending on, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, right? Nobody in a red or a blue state wants to see flagship institutions
Right.
start to get into significant financial trouble because of policy change like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I will add, as an institution that has been in the crosshairs of the current administration, we had $790 million frozen in FY25, and our university did come to an agreement the day after Thanksgiving. The Board of Trustees was paying a sizable amount every month to sustain the minimal viable product of a lot of the research. And a lot of research was sacrificed, unfortunately, because there wasn't the funding and it all just disappeared. For Northwestern, we never received a letter. We received notification about the pause of funds via a news channel. And so we have received a lot of feedback on, like, we should push back, but when you don't have documentation to push back on, we could have gone to the courts and been in litigation, but that would have also cost hundreds of thousands of and millions of dollars and time that a lot of this research wouldn't be able to be sustainable for very much longer. And so the university made a decision, the Board of Trustees made a decision to I won't say meet in the middle, but reach an agreement that there were certain red lines. You'll hear President Beenan say there were certain red lines that they would not cross. And the university still wants to recruit a diverse student body, still wants the values that it has always stood on. Do things have to look a little bit different as we navigate this space? Yes. But at the end of the day, I think from an institution that's a R1 spending a lot of dollars, it's really important that we unlocked that accessibility, or else we'd be in more dire straits, as Matt alluded to.
Just
No,
one.
go ahead, Dr. AJ. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the conversation on higher education, somewhere along the way, we seem to have lost track of the fact that higher education is intended to be a public good. It's not always possible to monetize the outcomes or the good that comes out of higher education. And I'm referring to societal good. We seem to have lost track of that aspect of higher education. And unfortunately, our politicians are focusing on what best suits the ears of their constituents and not on what is good for the society or for the country. And that is at the root of many of the problems that we run into today. And I think one way out of this is for higher education to speak up on the benefits of higher education for society as a whole, for the country as a whole, and not just to any narrow segment of a politician's constituents.
Dr. AJ for president.
What a wonderful conversation. I hate to interrupt, but
Stephanie's
we've got
interrupting.
I'm so sorry. We've got 10 minutes left. Wonderful conversation. I think we need a part two. Janina, I know you've been doing a really awesome job. So you've been doing a great job on some of the questions too. Our last question has to do with AI. And did you see the question that was posted?
I did. That's where
Do
I
we
was
feel
going
like,
next.
okay,
Yes,
well, I'm going to let you
yes.
keep going then.
Yes. How will AI assisted education play a role in the future? And does it have the potential to replace the on campus experience, or do you see it enhancing the university experience? So, this is all about AI now, switching gears. It's here to stay. We all know. So, what are we going to do about it? Jay?
I'll just kick us off. I'm sure everyone's got perspectives on this one. One, I mean, I'm very bullish on residential education in the end because there are things one can accomplish when you bring people together that you just can't do online. And I'm also a proponent for online where it fits. But I'm also of mind that our institutions have to take full advantage of that. And the person I worked for 5 years, Mitch Daniels, our president, was fond of saying that a Purdue education was one that had to pass the pajama test. Okay, it could not be an education that a student could get in their apartment on their couch looking at a computer screen. If that's what we were providing, then in the end, we weren't long for this world in the middle of these cornfields in West Lafayette. So I think, as we think about AI, again, how do we take full advantage of the classroom and problem-based learning, active learning, experiential learning, the thing that builds critical thinking skills that you have to use AI properly. I mean, all of us, I'm sure on this call have used AI, and it can be amazingly smart and it can be ridiculously stupid. And if you don't have, and you know what I mean, you've
Yes,
seen the
I do.
slop that it can produce, and it'll get better over time. I know that. But in the end, if you don't understand a discipline, if you don't have some mental frameworks, if you don't understand something about data literacy, you can't use this tool effectively. So in my mind, we still have an opportunity, but we have to recognize, it is there to stay, as you indicated. It's going to change the job market. We have to stay in tune to that. But I'm bullish if we can get our heads around it, and again, use the residential campus in its fullest. So.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go next?
All right, I'll go next. AI can be great as a painkiller or a vitamin. Let me explain what I mean by that. It can be a painkiller in business. If you have to analyze huge spreadsheets, well, it can do the job for you. It can be a vitamin. A worker can be a lot more productive by using AI tools than they could be all by themselves. But it is no more than that. AI has certain intrinsic shortcomings. A couple that come to my mind very quickly. One is the propagation of bias. It goes on with AI. And the second is hallucination. This is what Jay referred to. It comes up with nonsense sometimes. These are deep rooted issues that are very difficult to eradicate. And most important of all, AI can never be a substitute for a human being because AI cannot feel. It does not have value judgments. It cannot distinguish between right and wrong. These are human characteristics which can never be replaced by machines. So I believe that AI is of course here to stay. We should train our students with how to use AI. There's a whole branch of this called prompt engineering. And I think that could be applied in almost any area of higher education. But that's all there is to it. Beyond that, I agree wholeheartedly with what Jay said, that there's really no substitute for walking into a classroom and interacting with your faculty. I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Good stuff. Matt?
I don't know that I have much to add. AI is a tool. It's just another tool in the toolbox, and we use tools all the time to help educate students, no matter what their age or their level. And I think that effective integration of AI into the classroom, again, no matter at what level, is a faculty decision. And if a faculty member finds that it works for them in a certain manner, another faculty member may find that it doesn't work for them in that same manner. I think that's where the discretion that the faculty have to use it. I don't, again, agree with my colleagues here. I don't see it replacing the traditional classroom experience or even the traditional Zoom experience for those of us that, primarily teach online. Because of that human interaction, because of that human perception, the opinions that the freedom of the opportunity to discuss bias and discuss different perspectives is something that AI, at least at this point, is not capable of. And so again, a tool in the toolbox, but it's not going to be the end all to our processes.
Thank you, Matt. And Lindsay,
I
comments
would
on it?
just, yeah, I would just add that it's really a tool to leverage for efficiency's sake, but it doesn't replace anything that any of my friends around the virtual table have articulated. And really just to think about, like, it's going to reshape how we do things. And I think the thing that I'm thinking about the most is how do we ethically incorporate it? Because there's so many unknowns, and that's where I think a lot of the questions are, right? Around how do we work alongside this to benefit the human good versus allowing it to be for us to be in competition. Like, we're not looking to be in competition with this tool because we know that it is made by by us, and so we can inform it. And so thinking about how we continue to leverage the student experience for that residential. I agree with the residential comment. I think it can be complementary. Of course, any modes of learning and delivery is important, but I don't think that it's never going to replace that experience. You're still going to have to be in a space, whether it's virtual or in person, where you're going to consume information and be able to provide it back out in a meaningful way. Even if AI gives you all the answers, you still have to be able to articulate it in a meaningful way and not read off of a screen or whatever, right? You're still going to have to put your own feelings behind any of those components.
Janine, just one other quick point. I do think there's an opportunity for us here in higher ed to double down on our relationships with our employers, with our alumni, to understand how it is being used. I mean, it's moving so fast, it's hard to stay up on how.
It's
and if
very hard.
the better job we do understanding that, I think the better job we can do in answering the questions that Lindsay raised.
Yes, very true. And there is a lot happening on the business side in the corporate space. And it is all about, and even at department by department, different departments within the corporate space use it differently. Human resources uses it differently than another department, IT, for example. And it's little by little learning how to use it best to fit, and then it changes again. So thank you for each of your comments. And I am going to get in trouble with Stephanie, so I'm going to hand it back off to Stephanie. And thank you all so much for being here and for your time and your expertise. So appreciate it.
You all, thank you. Round of applause. This was a wonderful conversation. Janina, wonderful job. Panel, wonderful job. And we're right on time. I don't think we have time for another question, but I do have some unanswered ones that I will address with the panel via maybe email if you all are okay. And then when I send out a follow-up email to everybody who registered for this event, we can address those questions. I don't want anybody to feel that we didn't hear them. But thank you, everybody. This has been recorded. It will live on our virtual events site, which you can find at alumni.ilstu.edu. It'll get up there in a couple days. So feel free to rewatch it, share it out. And then, tune in, check out a future Redbird Table Talk. If anybody has any ideas about a great discussion for Redbird Table Talk, don't hesitate to let me know, and we'll try to make that happen. But go you Redbirds, and have a wonderful evening.